And what is up, everybody? I did not watch UFC this past Saturday. I don't like John Jones. I don't really care for John Jones. But if it was his fight with if it was a rematch with Cormier, then yes, I would have. I probably would have gone out to see it. But Cormier gets injured, so they decide to put up an interim title, and his John Jones' new opponent is Ovince St. Preux. I never even heard of this guy until they announced that that's John Jones' next opponent. Never heard of this guy. And of all the top ranked light heavyweights, you could have picked. It's like, oh yeah, Jones is number one, and he's number six, so it only made sense. No, it didn't. It didn't make sense to do that. If you would have put the number two, you'd have had Ryan Bader. Ryan Bader was supposed, past due for a title fight. Um, if you'd have did Anthony Johnson, you know, considering they were supposed to fight before Jones got himself at the, got really really stupid, and apparently still is, and that would have made more sense. Let's be perfectly honest here. The only reason they put him up against Ovince St. Preux. The only reason why they did that was to make sure that John Jones could secure an easy win, to make sure that he is absolutely guaranteed the title shot against Cormier. That's it. That is the only reason why. Ovince St. Preux was a feeder fish. That's it. He was cannon fodder. They gave some. Oh, he's ranked number 6. I've never heard of this guy. I've honest to God never heard of him before this fight, and because with so many freaking shows being booked on UFC, and like with UFC, it makes it almost impossible for me, somebody who was during my time in the Marine Corps, and they would have a show like once every like 3 months, and I was buying every DVD consistently. But once it got way past UFC 100, and Randy Couture retired again, retired for the second time, and Chuck Liddell was forced into retirement, and all these other things, man. It kept it very very hard to keep up. And then once WEC was 100% absorbed into UFC, like I hardly know who anybody is anymore, and it's tough, especially since we got a guy like Ovince St. Preux. Like, I have no idea what this fool's credibility is. None. Did he headline a fight night? Or anything like that? Never heard of this guy. So for him to be number 6 to go up against the number 1, like, oh, it only makes sense. No, it makes sense to you is like to make sure that John Jones, your biggest money maker right now, one of the highest pay-per-view bringers that you have, is guaranteed a title shot. Because if he gets the main event against Cormier, you're gonna make more money. Cormier was injured. So that was a big problem. So you had to make sure, let's be honest, you had to make sure that he had an easy fight to make sure and solidify his shot at a rematch with Cormier. He was supposed to get it right away. Cormier was injured. If Ovince St. Preux would have pulled an upset, which I was hoping for, if that would have happened, how much... He already cost UFC money by refusing to do a pay-per-view, because like, oh yeah, if he'd have fought Dan Henderson instead, then he would have made less money. Personally, you're the champ. You're there to fight. But oh, I'm sorry, that's right. John Jones doesn't fight; he plays the game. Because apparently that's what happened with this fight as well. It went all 5 rounds, and he wins via unanimous decision. What does that mean? Like I said, I didn't even see the fight, but it was like, oh yeah, dominant performance. All that means is he was using his reach to his advantage the whole time. He couldn't do that against Cormier because Cormier knew how to get inside, so he had to press Cormier up against the cage. He couldn't do that with Gustafsson, and Gustafsson beat the snot out of him, but unfortunately ran out of gas by the 5th round. Jones, having been out of the game for a year, to try to come back in right off the bat. Even Dana White said if he'd have gone up against Cormier, he'd have had a rough night. And a lot of people are saying that is not the John, that's not the same John Jones. This was a warm-up fight. This was his warm-up fight to get him ready for Cormier. That's basically what it was. And personally, I hope Cormier does exactly what he needs to be able to freaking finish John Jones once and for all. Seriously. This is supposed to be my fellow brother in Christ, but the way he's acting, all the stuff that he's like, I'm not judging anybody. It's just that if you're stupid enough to do this, you just let it all hang open like a rotting wound. It's like I'm sorry. Somebody's gonna say something about it. You step out the cage and you flip Cormier off. Really, do us all a favor and just cut Philippians 4:13 off your chest right now. Seriously, you're making us look bad. Above all, I feel bad for Ovince St. Preux to be given that much entirely too quickly. And I was really pulling for him, but unfortunately, it just wasn't gonna happen. At least not on Saturday. And for them to give him a rematch right away, and apparently this guy's cleared and gonna get his rematch against and apparently gonna headline UFC 200. Okay, that's cool. Cormier was cleared via MRI, so he's headlining UFC 200. UFC 200 is not that far away, so John Jones is gonna fight again. It's quick. Well, if that means he doesn't have enough time to train and he's gonna lose, that's unfair. But whatever. At this point, I'm done talking. You guys have a good night.